Welcome to PHP Podcast. I'm Mike.
And this is Orlando, and it's time for another Monday mini-sode.
Yeah, we love our Monday minis. Monday minis are where we take, a little bit less time to cover something than our normal hour plus episodes. So if you're just watching on YouTube and you watch these Monday minis because it's some good advice and a specific topic on reselling, we love having you over here. But go check out our podcast too. It's on YouTube. It's on all of anywhere you can listen to a podcast, your podcast service provider of choice. And we have a weekly podcast that lasts, an hour plus, and we talk about a lot of different things. But today, we are going to be talking about when is it appropriate to get a storage unit. This is one of the questions we get asked most frequently. When should I get a storage unit? Should I get a storage unit? And there's a lot of factors that go into play, and everybody's situation is different. So we can't give you should get a storage unit on this date when you have X amount of money in your bank.
Many items. Yeah.
But we can give you some general guidelines that will help you decide, is this the right time? Is this something I should do for my business?
Yeah, agreed. And this one's kind of obvious, but this is what got me to get a storage unit. And it's when you don't feel the cost of it, right? If you are having trouble, like right now, I would say if you have trouble paying, you went full time and you're trying to pay the bills, I would run lean as long as you can. I would not get that storage unit. Now, some may argue that getting storage unit is pretty cheap. I don't know. I don't know everyone's situation, but I know for myself, now that I'm on a larger property and I don't need a storage unit and I got plenty of space, my storage unit costs were going up. I think I had like a 10 by 20 and it was going to cost me like 400 something a month. Right. And it was one of like my largest bills out of all my bills. I mean, I had rent and I had my kids' school tuition and so on. And then there was medical insurance and then my storage unit. And if it's something that is going to be, you're going to be stressing about and it's going to put you up against the wall, I would strongly encourage you not to. I would encourage you to go as lean as possible. But if you have plenty of sales and you feel that, hey, I'll be able to more than cover the storage unit, or maybe like Mike has done. Mike got a shed on his property, right? Because it's kind of like getting a storage unit, right? You do the upfront costs.
Yeah, and we did the exact same thing. Like, so just to give, these aren't the actual numbers per se, but I'm just giving numbers to help make this make sense. If it was, we need eBay to make $600 net every month in order to cover student loans and this or whatever it is we're trying to do as part-time. Or if you're full-time, I need X amount of money per month. This is like my bare minimum. After several months of making that plus $300, $400, $500, it's like, okay, my business, my eBay store is able to handle paying me the amount I need to pay. Mm-hmm. And part of that is putting money back into more inventory. Plus I have a surplus of money every month. What am I going to do with this? Okay, I can buy a shed for $3,000 and over the next year pay $280 a month or whatever it ended up being. And it's not going to hurt me because I'm making the amount of money I need plus 280, north of 280. So I have no problem buying this shed, or if that would have been a storage unit, that would have been the cost of my storage unit, same thing. So yeah, you've got to do that math and figure out. Now you can make the case, I need the storage unit or I need the shed in order to scale, and I'm not going to be able to make more money until I do that. So that's why every situation is going to vary a little bit, but bare minimum, your business should be able to handle it. Don't put the cart before the horse because you're going to end up with more expenses and it's going to end up sinking your business as opposed to being an asset for your business.
I agree. Now, that actually ties into our second one, right? When it's limiting your business, right? So you might say, hey, Mike and Orlando, I have enough money. It's not going to affect me, but my business is being limited. I would say go for it. I mean, that's one of the things that allowed me to grow. Like I was at a place where before I moved onto this property, my rent was pretty low. I wasn't paying a lot for rent. My expenses, I kept them pretty low. And so getting a storage unit wasn't a big deal. And what I found was when I went sourcing, I was more willing to buy more, right? Like now I'm willing to buy a lot more because I have a lot more space to put those items, even though Mike will say, Orlando, you need to be more organized, which is our other Money Mini episode if you haven't caught it. But I don't stress about it. I don't stress about having larger items. I don't stress about having a huge haul and how am I going to process it. I'm able to keep my, when I'm good, my living space and my reselling space separate. So that is pretty important.
Yeah, which leads into the next part, which is separating your space. So if you need a separate space, then it's definitely doable to, or a good idea to get a storage unit or a shed or an office, depending on the type of business you've got running. Because when everything is just in one place.
Oh man, it messes with you mentally.
Yeah.
Like I can't tell you, when I was living in that condo and I had inventory everywhere, I had shipping supplies everywhere. I'll never forget, I had no place for my shipping supplies. I would put them outside, and before it rained, I always had to get the tarp out. And if I didn't get the tarp out inside, then I had to toss all these shipping supplies.
Yeah. And when you think about it, you don't even realize how much anxiety, even if you're an unorganized person, there's a lot of people who are like, like, it doesn't bother me. I think it really does. And you just don't realize it. It's like when somebody is like, oh, I'm fine with 6 hours or 5 hours of sleep. Well, there are some people who can handle that, but most people don't realize that they're just running suboptimally and have been for so long. Me. Right. Where you just like, oh, I feel fine. And it's like, well, yeah, but you're only running at 80% capacity. And I think the same thing is true when you're super unorganized. Everything's in one spot and you could organize, because I heard, one psychologist kind of put it like this, if you've got a pile of bills or papers and stuff you've got to do on your desk, every time you look at it, it's almost like anxiety and fear of the unknown, the things you've got to do, the bills you've got to pay. Whereas if you were to actually sit down and go through each one of them and have an empty desk, then when you look at the desk, you've got no anxiety, no fear. You feel so much better. And it's the same thing with your organization. Think about every time you've actually spent the time to go through and organize your inventory or organize your bills or organize a room in your house where everything has a home and everything. You just feel better. And so a storage unit might be necessary in order to create that space in your life where you just need, my home life is my home life. And then I have a place where I go and I do reselling stuff, and the two don't mix, and it's allowed me to space. Now you might have a whole room in your house where it doesn't matter and it's already separate. But for some people, you need that storage unit in order to create that space.
No, agreed. Now, this is key. You have to have one nearby. I'm telling you from experience, I had one and it was half a mile away. And even then I would maybe argue that was a little bit too far, but it kept it simple. And you have to make sure the hours work with your hours. So mine had, I think they opened their gates at like 5:30 a.m. and they shut them down. I think it was like 10 o'clock at night. And so it worked out, right? Some places have 24 hours. So you got to find what works best for you, but it has to be nearby, because you have to think about the driving, right? The amount of time you spend on the road, how much that's going to cost you, not only in gas, but just the time that you could be spending listing or, taking pictures or packing or whatever it is. It has to be nearby or it's just not going to be efficient for you. Right. And I haven't had the experience of far away, but I know I've talked to many resellers that they lived out in the country and the storage unit was like 30 minutes away. And it was just, that's a mess. And especially if you want to make sure you're one of those sellers that sells like same day or next day, you want to make sure it's nearby.
Yeah, the excuses always come up when it's further away. Even where our shed is right now, it's difficult to get our car. We have to do a couple of turn around, back up, drive up a hill, back up, and walking to it is a bit of a hike and it's up some hills. So it's not the most ideal thing. And so even then it's easy to make excuses of oh, well, I'll go tomorrow. It's going to take me a little bit of time to get there. So I'll do it tomorrow. Whereas if it's close, it's a little bit easier to deal with. So nearby is definitely a thing. Cause when we had an office and the office was, so a few miles away from where we were at, if a sale came in, it was I'll go in the morning and I'll pack that. And then if you're like, oh, I got an extra hour tonight. Well, I'm not going to drive all the way down and list, because by the time I get there and get set up, and then I'm only going to have 20 minutes to list. So the closer it is, the better it's going to be for sure. And the last one is when you have no other options. And I can tell you from experience, when we were in the office, we didn't renew the lease in the office, and we kind of had to move out quickly because it was all right, well, what are we going to do? Well, we're going to get this shed, but it's we've ordered it, but it's going to be 3 months till it's here. So we had another fifth wheel up on my in-laws property that we just shoved everything into, an old fifth wheel, basically just a trailer we put everything into. And so for us, I know what it takes to be we have no choice. This inventory has to go somewhere. So maybe you're moving, maybe you are in a smaller place than you were before. Maybe you're out of space, and maybe it is going to be a little bit of a hit for you financially to pay for a storage unit. But if you're absolutely out of space, there's nowhere for things to go, you might have no other choice. And that might be the motivation that you need to say, my bills just increased by $200 a month. So I need to make eBay or Amazon or Mercari or Poshmark make what it's currently making plus at least $200 more, which when you think about it, reselling, that's only a few items. It's not the end of the world, but that might be the motivation you need to say, I have no other choice. So now I might as well scale my business to fit the storage that I now have, which you might end up making a lot more money in the long run. So that sometimes the best things that happen in life come because you're almost forced into it.
Oh, I was forced into this new property. I mean, I had no choice. My landlords were selling the condo and it was nice. The rent I was paying was beautiful, but I also had so much inventory everywhere. My storage unit was stacked. And unless, I was forced to move, I wouldn't have got this property. And so, I'm grateful for it. I had no choice, and it's allowed me to grow my eBay store. It makes listing a lot easier. Some of you are able to use your storage unit for listing. It makes shipping. It's made, organizing stuff a lot easier, even though not everything gets organized all the time. But still, again, if you have no choice, and you've fall under all the qualifications we talked about before about you don't feel the cost, you think your business will grow, you want to create a separate space and it's nearby, then maybe now the choice has been made and it's time to get that storage unit.
Yeah.
So with that being said, hey, make sure to be real,
be relevant,
and be reselling. Peace.